sword.
Take this time to consider your past deeds.
Stop asking questions. You had your chance. Let the games begin.
Greetings, visionaries. I'm your host, NotRobMay. Joining me today, we have the normal crew of Evemartyn and Andrew Brown, and we are Velen's Chosen Podcast, a Hearthstone podcast that gears itself towards the game, but with a twist. We like to make sure that we focus on those that are budget-minded and even new players on the ladder to end their season just a little bit better and continually staying competitive. Today, we talk a lot about some new things that are hitting the Hearthstone scene, so we may not necessarily have a really in-depth discount deck of the week for you this week. But to join us, we actually have Joe Hamboy Williams from Vicious Syndicate, a headcaster, a Hearthlytics top 4 finisher, and a somebody who may be going to Chicago for some tournaments. So welcome, Hamboy.
Yeah, how's it going?
So why don't you just give us a quick lowdown on who you are real quick, and then we'll introduce ourselves again.
All right, yeah, like Rob said, I'm Hamboy. I cast for VS. I play the game a lot as well. I'll definitely be going to the championship tour, albeit the one in Chicago on the 20th, I think, for North America. So I'll be playing in that. And then if you play in open tournaments, you probably either played against me or seen my name in a racket or something like that, since I'm always playing in those as well. So that's basically what I do. One day maybe I'll be a pro player, but for now I'm an aspiring professional Hearthstone player.
All right,
Awesome.
well, let's take this moment to have Eve and Andrew say hello.
Hello.
What the haps is?
I had this overwhelming urge to do that dance during but I'm not good enough for it.
Oh, well, that's good.
The football dance during the.
Because it's Super Bowl weekend.
Yes. It's like I wonder if I can. No,
So,
I
I
don't
don't
know
have the
about
mad
that.
skills for it.
Yeah.
All I got is the head bob.
Hamboy, Andrew, Eve, are any of you guys gonna care about football this weekend?
Actually, I'm going to a Super Bowl party, and my wife is a huge Broncos fan. She's from Colorado, so there's some vested. She actually loves football even more than I do. So,
Okay.
so
That's amazing.
I watch it for the commercials, though, really. So
That's how
I'll
I
enjoy
go.
that.
There's something for everyone, right? You got the halftime show. You got the commercials.
Are we getting a Hearthstone commercial? I mean,
We're
they had
getting a
that one
Pokemon
push,
commercial
but-
this year.
That's right. Yeah,
I have heard about that.
that'll be fun.
I've seen a couple sneak previews of ones that they're going to be showing. So yeah, even if you don't like football, there's a couple interesting things you can watch.
There's always something for you. All right.
Yeah.
So we have a crap load of stuff to talk about today. Holy smokes!
cow.
And
Hearthstone got blown to pieces this week.
blown.
That's
I
what,
didn't check my Twitter feed for like 1 hour, and then what was it? Andrew was like, "Oh my gosh, so much news this week," and I was like, "Are you being sarcastic?" He's like, "No, seriously, check the news
No.
right now." And I was
Well,
like,
So, in case you've been living under a rock, there's a new format coming called Standard, which is going to be very typical for the same as a lot of other collectible card games, where they're basically going to rotate sets out of playable format. Now, it's caused a big commotion because
Quite the
obviously
ruckus.
people who have purchased products now won't be able to use them in standard format. So it's pretty obvious that for budget players especially, this is a huge move. And so we're going to be talking a lot about what the implications are for that. But I just want to come out the gates real quick and say and clarify too that they're going to have standard and they're going to have wild. Wild is what we have had, which is where you can play any sets, any cards, anything that you want. And what's really key to this news for understanding from a sober mindset is that wild is exactly what we've had and it's going to remain. So
I like that you're saying that, because there's so much on Twitter that's like, we're losing so much.
And if you go to
everything's
Reddit,
burning,
it's like the
over.
burning buildings mentality. You're like, everybody's whining and complaining, and then Ben Bro's just like going on PC Gamer. Everybody, calm the heck down.
exactly. So it's really key to remember
You
that.
still have wild. It will
Yeah.
still have its own ranked ladder.
It's
Calm down.
okay to have an opinion on standard, totally okay, but don't let it affect the fact that they're keeping what you've had. You will always have that. You can still get to legend with that. The only thing they're removing from it is that you can't get BlizzCon points from that, right? Am I right?
Which makes a lot of sense to me, quite honestly. Like having the most recent expansions be tournament legal, that just makes a lot of sense moving forward. Especially compared to like Magic the Gathering and a lot of other competitive card games doing the exact same thing.
Right. Well, something I neglected to say was that Joe is not only somebody that's getting into playing the game a lot, but he's hit legend like a ton, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, every month. Like it's not.
So this is
It's
borderline like
It's
around
like arrogant
10.
to say, but it's just like like if I didn't get the legend, I'd be like really surprised every month.
Okay, I have a question for you then, because I'm really curious about this. I was wondering if you are going to be interested in also ranking up in Wild at all, or whether you're just going to focus on Standard.
No,
Be like,
I'll
that's my
probably never
legend.
queue a game of Wild. I don't ever
See
see
there,
it.
see, this is what I'm saying for new players. If you want to keep playing Wild, I am thinking that a lot of the Legend players are going to go to Standard, and it might be a little easier to rank up in Wild play because since it's not worth points, unless they're a completionist who is like, I want to hit Legend in both forms, it might kind of like all the really professional, high, skilled players go to Standard format, and Wild is a little bit easier to hit Legend.
I think it'll be a lot easier to hit legend, to be honest. Like anybody who takes this game like even semi-seriously is like literally never going to touch Wild. Because if you want to like play in BlizzCon, then you just have no motivation. I mean, maybe if you want to play something weird and use it as a fun format, then you would play it. But even then, you're not playing like no. I don't think any high-level competitive player is going to break out like Secret Paladin in Wild mode and try to climb.
There you
I don't see
go.
that
So this
happening.
kind of gives people who just want to play the game and have fun and play with all the cards that they have, you have a better chance at hitting Legend and Wild now.
I
All
would
right,
say
so
so,
let's-
sure. I think it's what a lot of people want to. It'll be what a lot of people want a casual mode to be. Kind of. I think you'll allowed to, like, be slightly less like try hardy or like play like more. You'll be able to play less serious decks or like more of your own decks and still do well. At least I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
All right, so I'm just gonna blaze through this because we recognize there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of news. Most people know what's going on, but in case you use this as a sole source for just like, hey, go here, figure out what's going on. This is what's going on. All right. So the last 2 calendar years up to current will be the full standard set that will reset every spring, and the oldest sets will be phased out, as it were, as far as out of the stores, so they're no longer purchasable, but they are craftable, even adventures. And then second, the sets will they will be split into these 2 formats we've talked about, Wild and Standard. Standard will be the only and sole competitive format that gives you BlizzCon points to advance to being champions of the world, as it were, or even your area. Okay?
I mean, you can continue to make private tournaments where you can use Wild if you want. It just won't be BlizzCon points.
Yes, yes. So basically they're saying right now you have in the game we have 3 adventures. We have Naxxramas, Blackrock Mountain, and the League of Explorers. And then we have 2 expansions from the classic and basic standard set that released after beta, which is Goblins vs. Gnomes and the Grand Tournament. So they are taking the eldest brothers and they're not giving them their birthright. They're basically kicking them out of the
Something like
house and saying, "Get a job, you're going to Wild." So that means Goblins vs. Gnomes in their entirety, as well as all of the Naxxramas cards, are phased out of not only the game in standard format, but also the store for purchasable. And they haven't said anything officially with any sort of news story from what I've gathered, but I would assume that also means they're rotating that pack outside of Arena, so you're no longer acquiring them.
They have said that actually.
Okay, so they did say that.
Yeah.
So those are the fastest way to explain you all of the important parts of this standard format. There's a lot of jumbled stuff. We'll go through a little bit more of the impacts for budget players. But we have a
So
lot of show
my
notes for you
question,
today.
it sounds like Andrew has read up on this extensively. Are you not going to be able to purchase adventures anymore in any form, or can you still buy them with gold?
The old ones that are phased out, you mean?
Yes.
So if you have purchased at least one wing, you will still be able to purchase all of the other wings. So
Okay.
if you want to be able to just have access to those, save up 700 gold real quick and get just the first wing of Naxxramas. I think that's probably the best way to acquire those cards for wild format if you want. But as Rob mentioned, you will be able to craft all of the adventure cards once they have been phased out. So in the past, you haven't been able to use your built up dust to make adventure cards. You have to purchase the adventure. But because the adventure is rolling out, they're going to add the ability to craft those cards, which is really smart. It means that those cards aren't impossible to get. They might be a little bit more difficult. They might be even a little bit more valuable because of that. But at least there is a way for even a budget player to work themselves up to where they can have a couple Sludge Belchers in a wild deck or something.
But if you don't own any of the wings, after
Then you
it's
can't-
phased out, you're
you
not going to be able to get the adventures
You
anymore.
have to craft. You will not be able to play the adventure, which is kind of a bummer. I saw an
Yeah.
idea somebody threw out there. I mean, everybody knows Naxxramas was hysterical with KT, taunting you and stuff.
That was hilarious.
It's a lot of fun.
Even to just be able to play through it without gaining any rewards or anything, I feel like would be a really nice way to kind of
Yeah.
add some value to the game for people. But there's something to the core players who have gone through all of it now to be able to say, I have that experience, and now you as a new player can't have that experience. Does it make it fair or not? I don't know. It's really just an experience that you have, not necessarily anything more than
So,
that.
Joe, what do you think about this stuff, man? Like, what are your immediate impressions when you read this article?
As far as like standard format goes, I mean, I think it's a great idea just because I'm like, it gets rid of so many problems that I had with Hearthstone. Like you said, they're removing all of GVG set and all of Nax. And Nax is annoying because it costs a lot of gold to get some like really like boring cards that you need to play decks, like things like Mad Scientist and Chow are cards you kind of needed that they're not exciting. And then GVG has cards that just ruin the game, like Shredder and Dr. Boom. So I'm really happy. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Moving forward, like my brain is moving 1,000 miles a minute because there's just so many things that we want to discuss. So this is more than likely going to be about an hour and a half show. If we can pack it in, we'll try to do what we can in that hour. But I really want to cover this well because I don't think there are a lot of podcasts that are going to go as extensive for you as far as taking the impacts of it in the scene and then spinning it towards your budget. Because I don't think I've heard any one person or any one article, aside from the one that Ben Brode himself was in, saying that this change is designed, the entire change is not only designed as far as the overall health of Hearthstone is concerned, which is the biggest one, but the second thing that they said about it being the best thing for Hearthstone was so that the barrier to entry for new players is best, which is what we had said on our laundry list of things that we were hoping would come next in Hearthstone. It would come, and the confidence that we had placed in Blizzard as a development company, basically all of us were saying, this is exactly what we want, but we recognize that this is probably not the greatest or the sharpest refined solution. And MTG and other card games have done it or failed in it, and that Blizzard is going to make or break their decision coming up this year. And they did it, I think. I think they've done an excellent job at making this a priority for the overall health of the game, the barriers to entry for new players, and keeping in mind players that just don't like to spend a lot of money and catering to them, at least in some stretch.
Yeah, and for everyone listening to this, whether your budget or not, you think about how this is going to freshen up the game and take away the whole fact that, okay, yeah, you've put some money into things and they won't be playable in a specific format. But just put that all to the side for a second and just think about how we've talked so much, and I'm sure every listener has experienced that when you get on the ladder and you run into the same deck over and over again, it gets frustrating. It gets
Stale?
Stale. Yeah. Think about just the fact that Avenge is leaving standard format. Secret Paladin is going to fundamentally change just because of that. Will it be dead? I don't think so, but it will be different because of that one small card just rolling out of the format. So you think about the implications for every single class, and we could probably spend a whole episode on each class if we wanted to, but even the standard deck archetypes that we've seen throughout the years, the new ones, all of that, they're going to be changing, and at least each year we'll get sort of a reset button on, man, this one deck has gotten really powerful, and they don't have to nerf it. They're just going to remove this from a specific form. If you want to keep playing that, you want to keep running into Secret Paladin, go to Wild, it'll still be there. But now you have an option when you say, you know what, Secret Paladin isn't as effective over here, I'm going to go and try something different.
So,
And you know what? I think it kind of feels better to phase cards out into Wild than to nerf them.
Yeah.
Like to players who had that big uproar about how Patron Warrior was changed. If that just kind of phased out and those cards were out of the meta, that would probably have felt a lot better to them than to change the entire card and the way it worked. So that might be an easier way for them to deal with things that are sticking around for a long time and remaining really powerful and
right. So
the meta.
Joe, what are the two things that we have? Like, there's two things that I'm really looking for to discuss in addition to the stuff that we've discussed. What is actually sticking around permanently, right? And then what's one of the big quality of life changes that Blizzard decided to just like throw in this news update?
What do you wait?
The deck slots.
Deck
Are you
slots,
not-
right?
deck
Like
slots?
that the deck slots thing, like everybody always gets like so like upset about it, and it's never bothered me. So like I don't, maybe I'm like the only person who's like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But like I guess it's exciting, but I'm not
No,
I'm not
your
that excited
honest
about it.
opinion, right?
Yeah,
That's great. For me, I hardly ever get to the end of my deck slots either, unless I've been like playing random decks with friends, or there's
I'm a hoarder. I like to keep them in there.
the old decks that you don't even play anymore. You just keep them sitting there.
Like, I had Oil Rogue sitting there for like 6 months, and I just haven't even played it.
Oh, I'm way too ADD to do that. I'm always running out of spaces. And I've totally agreed with them that once you get more, then you're just going to want even more. And so, like, once I have 18, then that's not going to be enough. So the funniest thing was the picture that they threw in with it was just that it scrolls down a little bit more. It was like,
Dude,
wait,
people are going to be livid.
you guys have said that it was a UI thing that kept you from doing it so fast. And a scroll bar is not something. Anyway.
Whatever.
Well, we'll see what it looks like when it eventually comes out and see how. I mean, I still have kind of difficulty pressing the different buttons on my phone, so I think that's probably a thing for them that they were concerned about, like opening up the different.
We need to get back to
like
what's really at it, right? So not only are they phasing out old content, but the stuff that's sticking around is not just sticking around, but it is being changed, right? So, Joe, why don't you take us into what we really know about what they're going to do with Classic and Basics cards?
All right, so those never go away, right? They're gonna rotate out all the expansions, but they're gonna keep Classic and Basic sets. But they did say they're gonna deal with the problem cards, and while they haven't like specifically called anything out yet, if you follow like any pro player on Twitter, or you follow me on Twitter, you see them whine about Druid like all day, every day. So hopefully, fingers crossed, they're just going to take Innervate out, that card, hopefully. But they'll probably, in more realistic terms, they'll probably do something to the Force Nature Savage War combo. Paladin,
That's
like
what I'm
Divine
thinking.
Favor is questionable.
What about
Divine
neutral
Favor,
stuff?
really?
Divine Favor is
It's not the first one that
it's
comes to
like
mind.
an anti Hearthstone card in stretch of it, is because Hearthstone always has been notorious for punishing you if you're playing a fast deck in the late game. But when you have Divine Favor, it like rewards you for dumping your hand, which there's like
Only if the other person has cards.
Yeah, that's
If
that's
the other
big
person
part.
yeah,
as
but
well
most of the
doesn't have
time you're
cards,
still
you
going to
can
get
get
more
cards
cards
in
that
hand.
are the value than your opponent is. Like, there's very rare situations where they're going to be like, it's really hard to play around Divine Favor. We'll put it that way. Like the
It's not the best card in the game, but every 1 out of 5 games, 1 out of 5, maybe 1 out of 10, it's absolutely game breaking. Well, I don't think it's OP. I think it's like it's a problem card. It's just not fun to play against. It isn't really like intuitive to use.
What about
I think
Unleash the Hounds? That one's one that I hate playing coming up against.
Yeah, they've
think
changed that card like
it used
10
to be
times.
so much worse too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
With the
they've
Starving
nerfed
Buzzard,
it
yeah.
so many times. They've changed that card so many times.
I
Trying
do.
to keep it
I
under
do say
control.
that. I do think that card in tandem with Hunter's Mark is a little too powerful. I can see Hunter's Mark being changed to add like 1 mana or something simple. It's like 0 mana cards are just like either amazing or just total crap, right? Like
Yeah. But with realizing that classic and basic are going to stick around, it obviously everyone's thinking, okay, well, what are the most effective decks that focus mostly on those? And the Druid combo deck is obviously the first thing that comes to mind. Like the Shade and Naxxramas is the only thing that's getting phased out, I think, of this stand.
Yeah,
on
and
that.
you can just use Mono Raptors and you're fine.
Yeah, there you go. And then the other thing was like for me was Control Priest is just a ton of basic cards also.
yeah,
Yeah, you
uses
lose
a ton
two.
of
everything
you
that
lose
makes Priest
Chosen.
really good,
Yeah.
aside from Entomb right now and Museum Curator, is like all GVG cards, like Velen's Chosen, Light Bomb, their Dark Cultist 3-drop that's like
That's a
borderline
nice card,
just
yeah.
amazing. And then yeah, so there's some other thing that I want to bring up that we have in our show notes here. Just very quickly, when you play your Tavern Brawls, that is wild in the sense that every week it's going to be different. And so more often than not, when you're building decks, you're going to be able to use pretty much any cards you want. It's meant to be fun and crazy and silly, and they want to give you lots of tools. And yeah.
They did say that they may throw in, okay, it's a standard deck week or
Right,
something
Yeah,
like that.
right.
yeah.
But
So they're giving
More than
themselves a lot of
likely.
wiggle room with Tavern Brawl for the most part,
Yeah.
if you want to look at it
Yeah,
that
it's
way.
Brawl. It changes every week, so it
It's
could
for
be
fun.
whatever rules they say it's going to be. Yeah.
Yep.
Funsies.
They will also say that when you get a new adventure, that you will always be able to use your entire collection. So if
Oh,
you're
yeah,
fighting
against the
against
bosses?
heroic
okay.
bosses or regular bosses and you're just hitting your face against the wall, there may be some perks of being a veteran player. So they are rewarding people that have stuck around longer in that sense. But they're not leaving everybody out to dry because they're letting you craft the cards if you so desire to keep them in your collection.
You know, one thing that was coming to mind as I was reading this news was I wonder how many new players they're getting a day. And obviously, like, when they come out with new content, that's going to be a bigger push where more people are going to come. But, like, with the next expansion, how many new players is that going to bring to the table? Because I'm sure that as they're releasing adventures now, they're having to go through and think, okay, is this boss beatable with just basic cards, with just classic cards?
Exactly.
Like, obviously, it's always going to be easier with, you know, all the... you've got a Batman's utility belt if you've built up, you know, this, you know, collection over time. But for the brand new player, are they going to even have a chance at beating this guy? Maybe not even heroic. I don't think that they could make it where it's possible to
Yeah,
beat
the heroic modes are not designed for the new player experience.
Yeah.
They're
No,
designed for people
they're
to
not.
have a really difficult challenge.
And I want to say, you know, based on our experience, especially with Rob trying to make specific decks for the League of Explorers with, you know, really budget cards, the normal is pretty easy. Like, except for that one with the mine cart, we found it pretty easy to do all the bosses on normal.
Mm-hmm.
The real challenge was heroic. You could pretty much throw together a half-decent deck and beat any of the bosses.
And
on normal.
realistically,
so far,
like-
I think they've done that pretty well.
Realistically, another thing that I forgot to mention is like when they phase out content, the only thing you're really missing out on is the heroic card back. Realistically, like that's the only thing that they're
Right.
making as a gatekeeper
Which is like
thing,
a
and it's
badge
not even
of
a
honor,
competitive.
right? Like,
yeah.
I got it when it was out.
Yeah, it's your
I think
hipster
that's
badge
okay.
it's your badge of glasses, right, for being a hipster.
Yeah. It's like
So-
not being able to get the monthly card back if you hadn't played Hearthstone yet, right?
Yeah.
Which
All the
actually-
ones that you missed.
Actually, Ben said that they're looking
They're
into
looking
ways
at
for people to get
Getting
those.
them back, yeah.
Yes.
Which is weird
Yeah.
to me, but I'm okay with it because I missed
Yeah.
several because I didn't start
So,
playing until next.
I'm gonna
I'm
ask
talking
this-
more about the ones that you couldn't get unless you were
Yeah.
at BlizzCon or
Yeah,
like
no,
the
I'm with you.
Chinese one and
Yeah.
I'm gonna pitch another question to Joe here. What are your thoughts about the random effects that they had stated? You know, like random or discover stuff. So, like, for instance, Unstable Portal has been undeniably one of the most oppressive RNG cards, aside from like Implosion and Shredders, right? But
Yeah.
what they've said now is that any and all of your Discover mechanic cards and your random generation of cards in Standard will eliminate from their algorithm all cards that are in Wild. With the exception of something like
I think it just makes
Ball of Spiders.
sense in terms of it's just like less things to play around in terms of like, all right, my opponent discovered, so it's one of these like in the case of Dark Peddler, it's one of these 15 things instead 30. And like there are cards that in the set that would be like really bonkers to pull off an Unstable Portal, especially if you're not playing around it anymore.
Yeah.
Like just looking at the list of things that are gone, like something like Kazan off an Unstable Portal. Although I think Portal might be gone too.
It is.
Portal is
Yeah.
gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank God
Unstable
for
Portal
that.
is now out.
And
Well,
Flame
Like
Cannon.
discovering a
Takes it out.
Kazan or something would
Yeah.
be like absolutely ridiculous.
There's a lot of
fun.
cards that are leaving. Like maybe we'll just jump into that. We'll
The
skip over
Shredders
the
are leaving.
yeah, we'll skip
So-
over the Ben Brode stuff, and we'll just like run through some of the cards and the highlights that are not in Standard. So, again, like Joe was saying, Druid is the one class that's most complained about within professional scene, and that's because I think if you watch Noxious's video, if you want to build a Standard or even an aggressive aggro Druid list, somewhere between 15 to 20 of those, or 15 to 18 of those cards are basic and classic cards. And the one thing that he said after that was, that's a problem design-wise. Like, your original cards from Alpha being oppressive in top tier 1, tier 2 decks for 2 years, going on 3, that's an issue. Because, like, Druid just doesn't have anything else to do. Like, if you started playing Druid from
Yeah.
Alpha and you've been playing it all the way through up until this point, you were, like, a really bored player. You know what I mean? Like, they're just doing the same
Like
thing
any
every game.
of the different changes that Druid went through, it was like this kind of Druid, but also you have the combo. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think there's any kind of Druid that doesn't just have the combo in it as well.
And then any
as
of the
whatever
other
else they're trying to do.
alternatives to Druid, like, that they have come up with, like Beast or Egg Druid or whatever, are still decent and or good decks, but they're just like, they're not optimal Druid deck. Like, they just can't be played.
Yeah, they're just
well.
not combo Druid, and that's why you never see him in tournaments. 'cause,
exactly.
Like, as good as it is, it's not combo Druid. It's not the best deck.
So,
So if they get to the point where whatever they make after is not enough to make somebody play a different kind of deck, yeah, that's a problem.
yeah. So
That
Eve,
there's
we're
never
gonna
going to be any other kind of Druid.
we're gonna just parse this together and just name cards off. So Eve, why don't you cover what we're losing, basically big cards with Hunter and Mage that are somewhat impacts.
Let's see. Feign Death isn't really used. Glyvzuka is in Face Hunter. Web Spinner is in Mid-Range Hunter. Steam Wheel Sliper isn't really used. Gazrilla isn't really used. So basically, Web Spinner and Glyvzuka, I'd say, will impact the game a little bit. I don't think they're losing a ton. But,
Ironically, you're not able to get Gazrilla out of Tomb Spiders anymore, though. So there's that.
Not-
Huge impact.
yeah, that's
Meta
like,
breaker.
well, other than King Crush, that's like your big, awesome game-ending card that you could
No,
get.
now you're just more likely to get high main. So like,
Yeah,
it's all
exactly.
good.
Oh, but also they're going to be adding a bunch of Hunter cards with the new expansion, so we'll see what is going to pop out of
Yeah,
that.
those could all suck. Like those could be. pretty
Tomb Spider balance.
Let's be optimistic here. Mage, Duplicate, huge.
No more
Flame
Grinder
Cannon.
Mage.
Okay, I use it in all my Tempo Mage decks, but I
no,
don't know
Flame
how
Cannon's
much.
really good.
Yeah, okay.
Flame Cannon's
I was gonna say, I
really
don't know
good
how the
card.
high tier legend players to play in, but Unstable Portal. I know
Esports.
it can be game breaking sometimes and really frustrating, but that was such a fun card.
It was
Like,
a
I'm
fun card.
so
It has its
sad.
place in wild format. It doesn't belong in competitive play.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
I
all
think-
I'll
Good
say
to
about
hear.
it.
I'm
Don't
going to
you
take
think
your
with
opinion
that-
as being like the legend opinion for
Yeah,
this
yeah.
show.
It really
That's
is a
it.
good point, though. Wild is going to be a anything can happen kind of thing, and
Yeah.
I've got a feeling
GBG
that
really
that
supports
format is
that.
probably going to see 1, 2, or 3, like those tier 1 decks on the meta report. Like it's going to be you either play those or you are dropping. You know, it'll
toasted.
probably be a lot more pointed Whereas Standard is probably going to have a little bit more. Okay, well,
At least until the end of the year, like when we have the most cards, like right now.
that's fair. Yeah.
So,
Sorry, keep going.
Echo of Medivh, obviously.
dude, your
Snow
grinder
Chugger,
mages are toasted
Mech
right
Mage,
now. No more grinder mage.
and Goblin Blast Mage. So pretty much, oh, gosh, mage
All
cards
the
are so
mechs.
good. All of those are
Mechs
good.
as a whole are just gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only mechs we
Just
have
sad.
left
Which, some
are
people are
like
going to be happy to see go.
Demolisher, Demolisher, Harvest Golem, Clockwork Knight, and Gorilla Bot. Those are like our
I thought
only
Harvest
mechs that are
Golem
left.
was Nax.
Don't forget Alarmobot.
Harvest Golem is a classic card.
Is it? Oh,
Harvest
for some
Golem's
reason I thought
classic,
it was an
yeah.
Nax card. Okay. So
Harvest Golem for a long time was like the turn 3 like Shredder equivalent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Harvest
so
Golem on
good.
3.
I'm really
Yeah.
excited to play Shattered Sun Cleric again if there's not a decent free drop. You know what I mean? Oh, also, to be noted, Zoo was one of the most oppressive and most complained about decks of all time before Secret Paladin and Patron. And that entire deck archetype is going to be enshrined in Wild
Yeah.
because the whole deck is basically Nax cards. So
For
yeah.
No, there's
what-
a lot of basic and classic
Yeah.
cards in old school Zoo.
Zoo, you have Creeper, Egg, Void Caller.
Oh, that's true.
Those just made
Implosion.
it better. But
Shield
Zoo was
Mage is
around
coming
before
back.
Nax.
Or Shield Bearer, or whatever.
Shield,
Shield
the
Bearer.
whatever the 04 taunt
04.
is.
Yeah, that's coming back.
I'm
Okay.
sad they're losing Implosion. Oh, we're skipping ahead. We're skipping ahead to...
Yeah. All right, so Andrew, you got Paladin and Priest.
Poor Paladins. Let's just say poor
Paladins are just going to go back to the worthless scum they were in Alpha.
So, Avenge is gone. That's big. Muster for Battle's gone. That's huge because that card brought Paladin back. Really, if you recall, before GVG, Paladin was like bottom of the barrel. Shaman was better.
It was the
than
worst.
I didn't even know it was a
Paladin.
class back then.
Yeah. But Muster for Battle
Paladin,
like,
what?
was such a swing card. So the fact that that's
No more
That's
mustard for your hot
leaving.
dogs.
bad. And I'll just throw this out. I mentioned this during the pre-show, but when a card that's this strong, like Muster for Battle, is leaving, you cannot say, okay, Paladin is gone, because Blizzard is very aware how much Muster for Battle makes a difference. So I don't know. They can do whatever they want, obviously, but they're going to come out with some good Paladin cards, knowing that all of these really good ones are leaving. There's going to be at least
They don't
one
have
or
any
two that are gonna
archetypes
keep
left.
Paladin.
They have no early game and no late game.
Yeah,
Well, like,
so
honestly,
like
all
Tyrion.
these cards leaving should make you excited. Because
it
you're like,
makes
they
look
know.
something creative.
They know we're losing all these.
Yes.
So,
So
what do they have up their sleeve to be giving us when the
Exactly.
new year starts?
Exactly.
Like, what exciting thing is going
I'm
to
really
be
glad
happening
that
to
they're
replace all these?
phasing out Coghammer, though, because that gives them more versatility with, like, getting different weapons, right? Like, that's one of the biggest things, I think, with weapon classes that's going to be really interesting. Like, I know I'm skipping ahead for Warrior, but, like, Warrior's losing a critical tool. And Coghammer wasn't really more of a critical tool until you wanted to go into more, like, the Secret Paladin era, and then when, like, mid-range Paladin was really, really good. Coghammer was just like a one-of, really good, versatile, extra card tool for your arsenal.
That's right. And then Shielded Minibot and Quartermaster are out
Best
too. So
two-drop
both
ever.
Shielded
both
mini
used
bot.
again. So like every card that's leaving Paladin is at least somewhat viable. You know, a Quartermaster is probably the least used, but even that, I mean, for mid-range Pally is
It was like
massive.
one of the most used before TGT
Yeah.
started, like in Paladin. So what about
So
Priest?
moving to Priest, we have to take a moment of silence because Valen's Chosen is no more.
At least the podcast is still relevant.
I'm so sad.
Our podcast isn't going anywhere. So
Do we need to change our name now?
No,
Maybe they'll make another Valen's
it
card.
just means that we're gonna be like the hipster
Card.
podcast, right? Us and the Unstable Portal podcast.
ooh, I like it. I like it. They're losing Light of the Naru. Light Bomb's the other big one. Again, Blizzard's aware that Priest is losing a big AoE, so that's Excavated Evil is probably going to be more valuable because of that. But they'll
Yeah.
probably come out with another one. Dark Cultist is huge because that was a massive.
3-drop.
Oh.
Yeah.
And Shrinkmeister, Vol'jin were pretty good tech cards, so those are out now.
All right, Joe, why don't you close us out? Or no, I gotta close this out. We'll go to Rogue and Shaman, and then I'll do Warlock and Warrior, and then we'll go back to Joe for the neutral set.
All right.
So Rogue and Shaman.
Well, Rogue, you have Oil, which is it basically removes an archetype in Oil Rogue.
Yeah.
You'll probably just see people play like Super JJ's Malios
Miracle.
Rogue list.
Rogue.
That'll probably become a lot more popular.
It's pretty cool.
Geblin, Autobarber, and Gallywix are gone, but I don't think anybody played those. At least not seriously.
I see when you lose a legendary, that probably means you're getting a legendary. So
Well, they've done
I
one for each
assume
class.
every class will get a
They
new
just
legendary.
haven't gotten
in
a
this
legendary
expansion,
that's been
right?
worth playing ever, right? Since Edwin.
Rogue, no. The other... A new
Numerok.
I think, is the other one.
Oh yeah.
It's pretty
Well,
bad.
With how they've been rolling, though, I mean, they with LOE doing all minions, no spells. It seems like they're really trying to make Rogue something that it hasn't been. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw even more push in the next expansion with that. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I'm not... Like, they added, like, that one Death Rattle synergy card. so
Yeah, but
maybe
that's
they'll
going
work
away with
that.
all the next cards, right? So what do you think's going to happen with that?
no,
It's going to be
the-
just as useless
the fossil
as it is
raptor.
now.
Unearthed
Right?
Raptor.
Yeah.
Not Fossilized Devil Swords, Unearthed Raptor, yeah.
They did
yeah,
Unearthed
that's,
Raptor and Tomb
that's not
Filter.
leaving.
No, it's
And
not, but the
it's
cards
Snake.
that it gets the value out of are gone.
All the good Death
Oh,
Rattle
Right.
cards are
oh, you're
max
right.
cards,
Right, that's
so-
true.
That-
But they could add a whole bunch of new Death Rattle cards.
They could.
Oh, I hope not.
Yeah, Death Rattle's
Well,
been
that
pretty
was Max
oppressive to the
Ramsey.
meta.
I love Death Rattle.
They'll keep doing new things.
I think they're going to give
They-
Death
they-
Rattle cards a little bit more of a drawback. Like, Death Lord is probably one of the more balanced Death Rattles, I think. Like, you get a decent amount of trade-off with the negative and the positive with the card. Whereas, like, Sludge Belcher's just, like, all perk.
So they're also
Yeah,
just
there's
good.
no downside to
Yeah.
Sludge Belcher.
All right, so what about
There'll be
Shaman,
more
Joe?
cards
They're
like
probably
the
not getting hit
swords.
too hard.
Shaman's losing Crackle, which is... It's kind of like... It's a good card, but it's annoying because it's super random, so, like, it's probably not that big of a deal. Reincarnate, Ancestor's Call, Power Mace, Withering Zappo, and Neptulon. Most of those cards aren't playable. I don't know if it's because, like, they're actually bad, or if it's just because Shaman has been, like,
Yeah.
so bad for so
Or
long.
all the power level of everything else is just, like, shoved theirs down.
I
Yeah.
would say that their strongest deck right now is Aggro Shaman, and the only thing they're losing is Crackle from
And that's
that.
not
which,
that big of a deal.
It's
I
a
would
deal,
say
but yeah, I agree.
it's
not a huge-
one more spell that you need in that deck to close the game. So it is pretty.
I would actually
I-
replace it with, like, a Wolf Rider and a Lightning Storm.
You can just just put another card that says like charge in the deck, and
Right.
you'll be fine, or like damage on it. They also might release another burn spell.
Mm-hmm.
That would be cool.
Or they might take
But
this
if
time
you look
to
at like what
notice
everything
how
else is
oppressive
losing
it
and what
is.
Shaman's losing, like Shaman's definitely taking the smallest hit, I think.
So, Joe, do you think it'd be likely that they just wouldn't add another burn spell just because they know how oppressive that aggro list is?
Yeah, I mean Shaman has the most burn spells I think right now, besides maybe Mage.
Mage, yeah.
So it would
It's
make
just
sense.
that they all have what do you call it?
Overload.
Yeah, overload. So that's a
That's
major downside
balancing,
in Mage. There's no downside to casting their spells. In fact, there's synergy
No.
with a lot of other cards that they have. so,
no. So
yeah.
So then we're losing... Warlock is losing Implosion, Void Collar, Dark Bomb, Mal'Ganis.
Mal'Ganis!
Dang.
Ooh.
That's a lot. That's a lot of, like, the
Dark
heavier...
Bomb is huge in my
yeah, I
opinion.
think Dark Bomb's like crazy important.
Yeah.
That made
Like his
Handlock
handlock now,
so
what do you do
much
against
better.
like something like Darnassus Aspirin?
What is
I
their
don't-
removal on the first couple of turns?
Hellfire, turn
That-
4, and Soulfire,
Yeah.
turn 1.
Implosion was a big removal card. Dark
Soulfire,
Bomb.
yeah.
Soulfire.
I guess you can. I guess you can play like Shadow Bolt if you want to wait till turn 3, but that seems pretty bad.
Yeah.
Demon
Yeah.
Fire.
There's not a good answer, but again, this gives them room to do something. Dark Bomb was not a creative card, so
It was a
You
needed
got-
card for the
Basically,
archetype.
they need a removal card. Here it is.
Yeah.
they'll come out with something. Although the Void Collar was such a huge staple for any kind of demon lock, so that stinks. But Zoo isn't going anywhere, so Warlock's going to be okay, and Handlock is going to be fine because that's all classic basic pretty much too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's true.
We're also
Mal'Ganis is sad.
losing Bouncing Blade, Crush, Death's Bite, Shield Maiden, Iron Juggernaut for Warrior.
Ooh. Ooh.
So Shield Maiden and a Death's Bite,
Ooh.
obviously.
And
I would
actually,
say.
I want to. We include Unstable Ghoul in this list because it gets played only in Warrior?
Yeah.
Well, it's in the neutral set that I put in there. I separated by Nex and
Okay,
GVG, so
Oh, that's right.
But it does affect patrons.
But the first thing I
First
think
thing
when I
you
see
think
Death
of.
Fight there and then Unstable Ghoul in the other list is that like
Patron.
that really sucks for Patron.
They're just going to be in Wild now, which is probably a good place for Patron to be, honestly.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's such a strong archetype, but it's such a smart archetype. I mean, I still can't quite figure out how to play it.
yeah.
And so to me, that's the staple of a really competitive deck, is one that takes a lot of know-how to really pull
Right.
off well. And now, you lose Despite, you lose Unstable Ghoul. What do you replace those with? You put in another Revenge? I mean,
You can't.
You
Yeah.
can't. It just doesn't work.
It just opens up for a new archetype.
Abomination. That's what you use.
No,
That's way too
please don't go do that.
They would have to say they'd have to go back on Ben Brod's word and say that they're actually going to buff cards in standard classic and basic, which they explicitly said that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So
They said they were going to change them.
They said they're going to change them and that they're going to mostly nerf cards between 2 and 20. So we know 2 of them is going to be combo, and maybe like the third would be Innervate.
Between
And then,
2 and 20.
so to me, I interpreted
Cannot
that
be
as we're kind of in between a lot of cards, so probably no more than 20. It's going to be a bigger deal than normal, but we're definitely going to nerf the 2 worst cards that are the most impressive.
It seemed to me, I interpreted it, I don't know how you guys did, that it's going to be a lot of small changes, though. Not necessarily like Savage Roar is +1 to 1 minion, but rather like just some slight change. So maybe it's from 3 attack to all minions to 2 attack to all minions, or maybe it's 1 attack to all minions permanently, or something like that,
So let's go back to Joe, and we'll cover neutral cards, and then we'll move on. So what are the neutral cards that are of note? We don't have to go through all of them.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, we do. Let's do them
Most
all.
of the Nax cards are good. Stalag and Fugan both see play in Reno Lock.
Yeah.
Yep.
Not the biggest loss, but they're still decent cards. Loatheb is a huge deal.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh.
It makes Freeze Mage a lot better. I actually had this conversation with my brother. I think Loatheb is just a great card because it deals with
It's just a
it's
good card to
useful
have
so
in
much.
the game.
It doesn't feel super OP when you play it.
Yep. I agree. It doesn't feel broken. It's just like if you play it perfectly right, you could stave off lethal for a turn.
Yeah, and on the same, you can also use it to protect your board. I like it.
I think
I'm
that
sad.
it's a really strong one. I think the thing that's sad to me is there's no other card that does what it does. So we're losing something that is so unique. And while it's almost, I would argue that it's overplayed because it's so strong.
Yeah.
We just don't have anything to replace it in any way. So I hope they come up with something that messes up your opponent's turn. Curse of Rafam. Oh, I forgot about that. Whoops. That's what we're replacing it with. Boom.
Curse of Rafam.
Oh my gosh.
That's the only thing that does something on their turn that forces them to play around
Rip
it.
Rafam.
That and Saboteur.
Oh.
Hero power.
Oh,
And then you have
interesting.
the staving off minions. We have Mana Wraith, and then the Rhubarb Weblord is just going away, so we don't have that
you're
anymore.
right.
Yeah, but spells. I mean, we're talking about spells, right? Making people not be able to play spells for a turn.
Yep. All right, so let's keep going. We got other stuff.
KT is gone. Not an actually useful card, I don't think,
I
but
love
it was fun to
KT.
play with.
Yeah.
It broke all of this, the adventures, right? How you won the adventures on Heroic. Play Kel'Thuzad
Yes.
behind a taunt.
But you can still use him.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah, you can
all
still
of
use
the
him in
wild
adventures,
cards
so-
are going to be available in the adventures. So
Good for that.
thanks
Okay.
for breaking the AI.
Shade's gone. It was only played in Druid. I don't think anybody will notice. Sludge Belcher gone. That's a huge deal. At least because we don't know what they're going to replace it with.
Right.
Because it's an anti-aggro card. Scientist is gone, thankfully. Creeper's gone. Unstable Ghoul's gone. Zombie Chow's gone. Dr. Boom's gone. Hooray.
Dr. Boom.
College of Shredder is also gone. And then I'm not going to go through the
play
list, but if a card says mech on it, it's probably
Probably
gone.
gone.
And
Most
then
notably,
Healbot
Shredder and
Zon
Healbot.
are both gone as well.
And I know we don't have time to talk about it in depth, but just that we have to at least give word that like Mad Scientist, Piloted Shredder, Sludge Belcher, Anti-Keelbot, these are cards that are very, very strong. Like the fact that they're leaving is a huge deal. A huge deal.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Scientist can be a
Scientist
5
even
mana
makes-
card for 2, if not
Yeah.
silenced.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Joe?
Yeah, Scientist leaving makes like every Hunter deck slightly worse and every Mage deck slightly worse,
Yeah.
at least.
Which
I
I don't
don't
have
think-
a problem with.
No, it's great news. I think that we've gotten so used to certain decks, like as sets have been coming out, they've been getting better and better and better. And now all of a sudden we're taking away like Mad Scientist. Like Face Hunter can't play the same, Mid-Range Hunter can't play the same. So many, or Freeze Mage can't play the same. That's going to be very different. So all of a sudden we've almost got to start back from ground zero and think through, okay, there's not something else that does that. So what are we going to put in its place? Is this going to be viable again? Is it going to open up new deck archetypes,
Which is what I think they're hoping for, is removing all of these auto-includes in a lot of decks to make people think differently and be more creative. The same kind of thing when Reno came out and like a lot of the League of Explorers cards came out that made people think about decks differently and create decks differently. It's like an explosion of creativity, which is
Yeah.
great for the game, keeping it fresh.
So I want to
keeping people
state
around
something
playing
really
longer.
big that's going to go on that I think just articulating it in a different way that players don't really have the ability to do seemingly in the large picture. Ben Brode has basically made an announcement saying we're taking away 200 of your cards competitively.
Yes.
And then we're giving you probably around 150 around the same time. But you don't know what that is yet. All you know is the good tools that we have given you are not going to be relevant and are not going to be playable. So people are outraged and really upset. They're just saying, look, you're taking away my cards, bro. You're moving, you're wrestling my jimmies, as the meme goes. So, like, you just relax. Like, there is, like, literally, you are net going to lose right around 50 cards. Something like that with this change. When the change goes live, you're getting 150 and you're probably losing close to 200. That is unique cards as well. That is not like duplicates. Like, so that's even more cards, right? Like when you're running 2 Mad Scientists and 2 Sludge Belchers and blah, blah, blah. 2 Anti-Keelbots. But the one thing that I feel like a lot of players are also missing out on is just how swingy the meta will change, right? Because they're removing tools that you're used to knowing are good or useful, and then they're giving you a bunch of mystery cards, aka like cards you're not used to using, but you can sort of figure it out slowly. The meta will not only swing like it did when they're releasing cards and you're getting a bunch of new tools, but they're removing really good ones. So we're going to have this meta swing that we've never had. Like, this is something that just Hearthstone players are not going to be used to having ever. Like, unless they're an MTG past player. Because you're
one
just,
thing is, though,
yeah.
I think that not every time is going to be as big of an impact as this particular one. Like, when we lose TGT, unless suddenly a lot of those cards become relevant for some reason, is not going to be as big of an impact as losing GVG and Nax. Like, what are the next 2 that we're going to lose?
BlackRock and TGT, and potentially
Yeah.
LOE.
And LOE, yeah.
Yeah, BlackRock has like 1 viable card in the whole expansion.
Thorson.
Yeah.
Patreon.
Yeah.
There
like,
might be one
maybe-
or 2 others, but
Maybe next year it's not going to be as big of a scary impact unless the new cards that we're getting
We're
are
losing
synergizing
Flamewaker.
with TGT and BlackRock cards in a way that we haven't foreseen. That's possible, but this one is huge because GVG cards are so prevalent in so many
Well,
decks.
BlackRock gets a bad rap for like having a lot of crappy cards, but it's because we kind of just forget about all the class cards that we got that were really good tools, like Imp King Boss and Flamewaker and Revenge. So like, there's just little cards like that a lot of classes that needed an extra tool to get their power level overall boosted are losing.
And I
So-
think also because they're being compared to Nax and GVG cards, and
Yeah.
they just didn't stand up. And
They really
then
wanted
maybe
to make
when
a
they're
huge
all we
change
have,
with those sets, and
then
they
they're
did.
going to be played more because We don't
Yeah.
have any other options. It's not like, well, obviously I'm going to rather play a Shredder on this turn.
So
Now we don't have that option.
what do we all think about what cards are going to be changed aside from Innervate Savage or Force of Nature? Like, what are other cards that they could potentially change for us?
You mean in the basic and the classic sets that need kind of
Yeah, exactly.
nerfing
Just stuff
or
that
adjusting?
that they
think-
could adjust.
I-
Maybe even neutral cards, probably.
I think that something around handlock is going to have to change. Have to.
Molten
Strike
Giants?
Strike that. I don't know if it's Molten Giant. I don't know if it's even Defender of Argus or
I think it's going to be a
Sun
big
Fury
game
Protector.
hunter change. I think we're going to see something.
Yeah.
I really want to see that card changed, if not deleted. Like, I just don't like it.
Before GVG, what was their heal up card?
Earthen Ring. You ran double Earthen Ring
Earthen
Farseer.
Rings.
Okay.
Okay.
And maybe like one Siphon Soul.
Yeah.
Because Healbot just obviously was a
Yeah,
little-
Healbot actually made that deck a lot stronger. I think it was still good, but there's a big difference between going like Molten, Sun Fury plus Earthen Ring and like swapping that out with a Healbot. It makes a big difference in terms of like burn spells and stuff like that.
Yeah. I could also see them tweaking a little bit of just like little things with legendaries, for instance. Like I could see them changing Tyrion to only having an Ashbringer that's a 5/2 instead of a 5/3. Like little things I could see them doing.
That's
but,
such a little thing.
but like I just here's my logic.
How many
and-
times have you used Ashbringer three times?
He's going to get a Death Spite instead. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah, there you go. But like the one thing that I think that the only I know it's such a little thing to say, but the one reasoning behind all of these, like why I'm thinking there's going to be a lot more cards that are impacted, is because I believe that Blizzard has only one obligation to those two sets, and that is to give you enough tools that you can build around that will not like stand the test of time and fill up half your deck. You don't want that as a design proposition. You want them to have enough tools that are usable. Probably less than 10 cards in your deck should be basic and classic together. I don't think if you're having more cards than that in basic and classic that you're doing your game right. So, with that being said, if they have a card that's good enough, like Tyrion, maybe you don't need to change that. But if you have cards like Innervate and Force of Nature and Savage Roar and Druid of the Claw, and then you also have like Shade of Naxxramas, and I mean I don't even remember
You know
what
what
all
they
the other
should change?
Swipe. So
Fireball.
Ooh, that I'm
Fireball
kind of with
could
you on
see
that,
a
actually.
little bit of a change to like 5 damage or something like that, right?
Or
You can't-
or make it one more mana.
I don't think Fireball will ever be touched. It's
No,
bread and
I
butter.
wish.
don't
I
know,
would
but
say it would
to-
be a much less likely that basic cards would see change, more so than like other than the ones that we've already stated. I think that the basic cards are more or less mostly balanced because they've been in the game the longest, and
It's
they've
more
undergone
how
the,
they're
like,
going to
least
work
amount
with
of
the new
changes.
cards that they're making for the new expansion.
Yeah,
Like that's we have no idea.
yeah.
We have no idea how they're going to work together with the new cards that they're
We do know
gonna
that
make.
balance changes will not ship until we get new cards, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
We do know that deck
Yeah.
slots are coming before we get cards. So I can see us getting more deck slots probably right around the same time. That,
Joe's like, whatever, deck slots.
yeah. Well, that's just something that we did read in the article that is a fact. Like, even if you don't want them, they're probably they're already stated that those will be coming beforehand.
I can't remember how many people I was reading on my Twitter feed that was like, I just crafted a golden Dr. Boom.
Yeah, and there's nothing around that. You know, if you did that, if you just bought Nax, it's a bummer. Get over it.
I just like every time I was thinking, you can still play it. He's not gone. You can play it in
Yeah.
Wild. It's
The
okay.
game is going to get better because of all
Is
of
it
this.
really? Yeah. It's
All
it's a good step forward. It's a good choice for them to make. And they're still there. I mean, people who are really serious about standard can go back and dust everything that's not standard.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if
Yeah,
you
that's what I'm
want
gonna
to,
do. Most
yeah.
likely.
and
Right.
like for people who can now dust their adventure cards, that's a whole lot of dust.
Especially the
When
golden
the next
ones that you've
expansion
made.
comes
If
out,
you've
you're
had
probably
them.
going to be able to make a bunch of legendaries right off the bat.
Poison
Like everybody who spent
seeds.
their money, now that you can dust Lotheb and my Exna
My Exodus is
And
like
KG
auto dust for me. That card's so bad.
I mean, I think they said that you're going to be able to get the max amount of dust only for a limited time. Then they're going to change that, and you're going to probably get it at a
I
discounted.
didn't see anything about the maximum amount of dust that you can get for cards in Nax and GVG. Like, I did not hear that. Joe,
I
Andrew,
saw
did you guys
that
see any
for
of
a
that?
limited time. I can't remember which
I
thing
don't
it was.
know.
I thought
don't
that
remember
the
if
changes were any cards that they change in Classic that are rebalanced, those definitively have abided by the timeless rule that if Blizzard changes a card in any way, that card will be refundable for its max amount of dust crafting cost, whether it be normal or golden, aside from basic cards, right? So Classic, GVG, stuff like that. Even they did that with Undertakers. So like when the Undertaker nerf, if you had golden ones, you could get your full dust
There's
value
been
back.
times in the past where they had you can refund it for its full refund for a limited amount of time, and then after that you don't.
That was only
Like,
after
you have a
cards were
certain-
changed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's only when they nerf cards. They did it with Gadgetson and Leroy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are like the two most recent.
Right, so the
examples of
whole
those.
phasing out of two sets of cards, giving you the full dust value for that, I didn't read that anywhere.
I did. I can't remember which site it was on. I'll check it up to make sure. But
Yeah. You can
For a
definitely
limited
follow us
amount
on
of time,
Twitter
you're gonna
and
be able
maybe
to
even
pull
ask
that.
Ben Brode or read the FAQ or something like that. But regardless, you can craft and disenchant the cards, period, in Nax. So that's a big boon.
Yeah.
All right, so let's
Chat, look
summarize.
up for us.
Yeah. Chat, help us out. So let's kind of
But,
just
like, I
summarize
mean,
our
that's
overall
for-
opinions of this.
That's what I meant for our budget players, though. Like,
Oh,
you
sure.
can now go and dust a whole bunch of cards, and you can make a whole bunch of cards. So that's a good thing for our dust.
Yeah.
For,
So-
people who need the dust to craft
Yeah.
cards. You can go and dust all of your Nax cards and your GVG cards if you really want to. I'm excited that their hands are free because they felt like there were so many super powerful cards that cards coming forward in the future were tied down and they couldn't be as creative because of these cards. So now that they're going to be phased out, there's going to be exciting, new, different cards, and I'm excited about that.
Okay, Andrew?
It's going down for real.
Okay, Joe?
What?
Just kidding.
What does that mean?
I feel like that needs an explanation.
No, you know, you guys know what yeah, you know what I'm saying. Things are changing. It's going to be good. I'm excited for what's coming. And if you're really upset and don't like the change, guess what? Wild exists, and it's exactly what you've always had, and you're always going to have it. And there you go.
And you don't have to play the game.
Yeah, the game is only And worst case, you can go and play Call of Duty and see how fun that game is. And
Ugh.
I'm,
And then come
I'm
back and
excited.
learn Hearthstone.
And
Yeah.
I really can't wait for the next expansion because it's going to change a lot.
Pipe.
I think.
All right, Joe.
Yeah, I think like at least from like what I've read on Reddit and like Twitter and stuff like that, I think a lot of people underestimate like how active Wild will be because the biggest thing is like, oh, like I can't use my GVG cards anymore, but like I think a lot of the whining about not being able to use GVG or like Nax cards anymore is kind of unwarranted.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they forget that there's a whole, like what we remember looking at the percentages of people that are like 15 and lower on rank ladder, which is, most of the people who play Hearthstone.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
like
it's like
what?
over 50%, right?
Yeah. So those people, I mean, there are people who play just to get their card back every month and people who just play to have fun with their friends.
Right.
And, the fact that Wild isn't going to give Hearthstone or Blizzard points, they don't care. That
Yeah.
doesn't matter to them. It's not a priority for them at all. The fact that they get to play with the cards and they're not going to be losing the cards, that's all they care about. So I think it's going to be full of people playing Wild.
My last thing is just like the impacts are good. I think this is geared for you as the budget community. Like this is all for you guys. Like it's overall this is just for you and this is also for the overall health of the game and it's twofold. So don't forget that. And also just moving forward, like don't dust anything yet. Don't craft anything yet. Just wait. We got to wait till the spring and just relax. Like I wouldn't even like dust any cards that you get that are like triples and dupes of like legendary cards. I would just wait. Like, there's no sense in predicting and then like guessing wrong. I mean, I'm just gonna sit on my dust and sit on the packs. I might not even play arena. I don't know. We'll see. I'm just hoarding my gold, hoarding my dust for crafting cards, and then I'll just do a bunch of dusting and buying packs when I start and getting through that. So I think it's time to wrap up the show. The stream's dropped twice on me, so this will be a really good adventure for me to like edit this show today. So let's.
What are we gonna say going forward as a show? Are we going to cover standard and wild?
We'll figure it out as we go. Right now, we can't make that decision because we don't know how it's going to turn out. We have suspicions, but we're always going to exist for the budget player, and we're always going to bring strategies that apply to everyone. That's never going to change, and we'll figure out what formats are best for that.
Yep. I will say that
right
we
now,
will be
we're
leaning
just
more
going to change
towards
our
right
main
now.
advice, which was buy Nax and craft Dr. Boom.
Yeah, don't
stay
do that.
tuned. Stay tuned. We'll probably even pull Joe back on the show and help us out with like crafting advice and stuff moving forward.
Yeah.
We'll
That'd be good.
we'll see what we can do there. But we got one email from Edwin this week just saying this last week's Tavern Brawl was his favorite. It was the little mini Munchkin ones with like the little 1/1 guys. He played it with a shaman until he got level 60. His druid at level 57. His druid is his last class, not at level 60. So I could have kept on winning, but I actually got burnt out of playing so many games. And he sent us a picture of him winning Tavern Brawl 100 times this week. It was like insanity.
Oh my
Wow!
So
That's impressive.
congratulations to you. I don't know what to say, but I only play it until I get one win and then I'm done. So iTunes
I have
reviews.
played to like 5 or 6 wins if it's something that's super fun. And then if you play it on the game night, obviously you play it a lot more. But yeah, 100? That's hardcore. Good for you.
So let's go
Good
to
for
iTunes
knowing what your
reviews
fun
and
is in Hearthstone and doing it.
yeah, iTunes reviews and special thanks.
Thank you.
You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
All right. So if you guys got that up, could somebody read Benny Biceps review for us?
I got him. He says, "Great HS podcast," which I assume stands for hailstorm. It's confusing why he would put that, but I don't know. Benny Biceps says, "This is the best Hearthstone podcast for casual and beginner players, and definitely my favorite Hearthstone podcast overall. The hosts are informative, energetic, and easy to listen to. They also have lots of great guests. I love listening to the show on my way home from work to get me excited about playing Hearthstone, or at least tilting and stressing a little less." Thanks, Benny. I'm glad that it's having that kind of influence on you.
Yeah. All right, Joe, why don't you read the next one?
All right, this is from Shift69. What I've been looking for, and then it says thanks RHO. I'm not.
Ro is
Oh, that's the guy we
Realm
had on-
Maintenance podcast guy who's in chat with us today. So thanks, Ro,
Oh.
for referring him.
Yeah.
Yeah, shout out to him. A Hearthstone podcast by players for players. Unlike some other Hearthstone podcasts, these folks spend the majority of their time talking about actually playing the game and not the esports scene, which I could not care less about. My new favorite Hearthstone podcast. Yeah, we didn't talk about esports at all today, so
Yep.
you're welcome.
Except
Fire
for
bat
the
or anything.
e-portal.
Nope. Don't
Yeah,
care.
Ro has a podcast where he tells people about podcasts. So he gives a lot of like, you should listen to this one, and this is what this is about, and that's how I found a lot of great podcasts, was listening to his podcast about podcasts.
That's
And
Yep.
I think it
interesting.
speaks to why we started the show, is that, other people were doing the esports stuff, and that's out there. We're not going to try and copy them because they're doing a better job than we would. But
Yeah,
we're
there's
glad
a lot
that-
of good ones out there.
Yeah, we're glad that we're filling the strategy scene. That's good.
All right, so we're going to let people know how they can get involved with the show.
It
Are
happens
we going to
every
mention
time.
our
They all become
Patreons, our
blueberries.
patrons?
We'll get there. So, how Eve, why don't you tell them how they can get involved with the show?
You can give us an iTunes review. It's the best way that you can give us more visibility, is give us a review on iTunes. And as you see, we read them on the show and give you a shout out. Share with your friends. Tell us about this cool podcast you listen to. Chat with us on Twitter. We always try and get back to anybody who sends us messages on Twitter. Support us on Patreon. Play Hearthstone with us. Play Destiny with me. They've got the new Valentine's Day 2 versus 2 coming up on Crucible. It's going to be tons of fun. If anybody knows what I'm talking about.
Not a clue.
Nope.
But keep going.
No idea.
Okay, moving on. Request a host to coach you through your Hearthstone plays and email the show some questions you want answered or a fun game story or a deck you need help with. We also have tons of fun reading those on the show as well.
Yeah, so thank you guys so much for your emails. Thank you so much for your iTunes reviews. We really appreciate those. Like, no denying. We just appreciate those. And then on top of that, we gotta announce we got another set of Patreon people coming in, right? So our first Patreon is still supporting us. We got Gabriel, and we got the man. I just lost her name, his or her name. I think it was. Is it Ada? Maybe.
Do you have it down here? Because
I
can't see it.
It's on our Patreon list. We got a new, which is Garrett. I know Garrett S. So Bad Year Blimp in the chat room. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
I'm pulling up in the patrons right now. We did, Andrew, why don't you just let people know what we're doing with the patron stuff? Like, we just revamped a bunch of stuff on there.
We did, and you can find it if you go to Patreon. Just search for Valen's Chosen, and it's right there. And we've got new goals, new rewards. We had a lot of feedback from people about merch and stuff like that. So we're starting.
I had a bunch of people tell me I would buy a shirt. I would wear a shirt.
So we're starting to take some steps towards that. And you can go check it out. It's probably going to make more sense if you look at it. But we've said before that we're going to, anything that we get from that, we're going to put back into the show. So we're not trying to spend a couple extra bucks. This is something fun that we do. So you're making the show more valuable for you by doing that. So we'll insert some giveaways. We'll update our equipment so that we can provide higher quality audio, video, all that kind of stuff. So go check it out, and you could even be on the show if you come get on. So come do it. Hang out.
That sounds fun. We would like to talk to you.
Yep. And the other supporter is Pratap N. So thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. We really appreciate that. Joe, Amboy Williams, why don't you tell people where they can find you at, man? Thanks for coming on the show.
All right, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm on Twitter at hamboy12_HS. I'm on Twitch at hamboy12, although I don't really stream because I'm too busy like try-harding off stream. And then if you want to add me on BNet, like tweet at me or something. My friends list is usually full, so I'll have to remove someone who's bad at the game to add you. So, yeah,
I liked having you on. I felt like, let's hear the legend opinion. Let's find out what the higher tier players are saying about the changes and stuff, because Rob has hit legend before, but both me and Andrew are still struggle bussing on the ladder to get there. So it's good to have that opinion of somebody who hits there every month.
Different meta to help out. So
yeah, different meta, different point of view.
Yeah, definitely glad to be here. Always happy to come on. This was fun.
Awesome.
Well, hopefully we'll have you on again.
Andrew, what about you, man? Where can people find you at?
You can find me on Twitter at AndrewIsLiving. Search for some arena tips on YouTube. My username is BinacaFreak, or add me on BattleNet. Andrew's Live number 1973. You can watch me fail miserably at rank 13 all over.
I still haven't even played this month yet. Ugh.
Yeah, I can't bust out of that rank right now, but it's still early, so I'm okay.
All right, Eve, what about you?
Before I say, I'll tell you what I was doing on ladder was just playing basic and classic cards.
Oh, geez.
Trying to get back into that mindset of what it feels like to be a brand new player who doesn't have any cards. And I started out with Mage, and oh my gosh, that is tough. Like going into the deck builder and going only basic and classic cards and only choosing from those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yikes. I think I won 1 out of 7 games.
Phew.
I ranked down
Brutal.
quite a lot. But I was resigned to hitting 20 and then
Starting.
I was like prepared for it mentally.
Yep.
It's tough. So I'm on Twitter at Finnovar, FHINNOVARR, on Twitch as Evemartyn, and if you want my BattleNet, please send me a message so that I know you're not an egg.
All right, you can find
You know what I'm
all the
saying.
links in the show notes to anything and everything where you can find the show on Twitter, Facebook. Email us anything you want to do if you just want to chat and you're bored. That's fine. You can support us on Patreon. Our website's at velenchosen.com. We're on YouTube now, so hopefully I can splice this together for our YouTube. We're on Twitch, which is your some of you right now are watching, and our iTunes, Stitcher, and RSS. You can find us on all of those locations, and we have an Esports Hero code if you want to play on Esports Hero. You sign up, you get 2,500 coins to play. It's kind of like Penny Arcade betting on your Hearthstone games, where you can do it with any game. And if you use our code, VelensChosen15, you get an additional 5,000 points, or coins. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter at NotRob. You can find me on BattleNet at NotRob1514. You can find me on Facebook for my online digital portfolio of photography and some design on Facebook.com/NotRobMedia. You can play and probably defeat me very easily on Rocket League at Steam. So my tag on there is Sir Twick with no spaces. Garrett has punched me quite a few times on that game. And I'll be streaming here occasionally once a week, maybe even more, on twitch.tv/NotRobMay, where the show is right now. So we thank you guys so much for joining us. Special thanks to Handboy for joining us too. We'll see if we can rotate him in some more. He's readily available with his schedule at college this semester, so it's pretty sweet. Get a nice legend opinion on the show. So
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
just remember that not all who wander are lost, and we'll see you guys in Exodar next week.
Adieu, adieu. Parting is such sweet sorrow.
Later, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
Take this time to consider your past deeds.
Stop asking questions. You had your chance. Did I miss it? My face!
All right, you're clear.